5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The only thing we have to fear is fear.
Mile 18.
This is Endurance Nation.
Hey there, welcome to the Endurance Nation podcast. My name is Patrick McCran and I'll be your host. Every week I break down a different topic on endurance sports, training, racing, strategy, using Endurance Nation's 4 key values of consistency, community, camaraderie, and competition. Being an endurance athlete is not easy. You're juggling many different things, including time, resources, money, travel, work, life. It gets stressful at times, but what we do inside Endurance Nation is break things down to their basic building blocks. Make sure that you can put them into practice, whether you're training or racing, to make you a fitter, faster, and smarter athlete. We've been doing this since 2007 and helped thousands of athletes just like you reach their own personal best and the finish line that they've been chasing for a very long time. We look forward to helping you here on this podcast, but you can also follow us online at endurancenation.us, or if you're looking for a specific topic, just Google Endurance Nation and the topic. I'm sure we've got something. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Endurance Nation.
Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here, and back with another race podcast, part of our series of checking in on the team and just learning about how things are going not only across the course of the year, but what people are doing these days to race, execute, survive the season, survive crazy weather. It's been a crazy year for all of us. And our guest today, the inimitable Derrek Sanks. Derrek, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing super well. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. I know Monday night, a little hard times to make it happen, but I do appreciate it. Most people, when I say, hey, can you talk? People say, sure. And then it turns into this process of 10 emails to try and get to the time. You were like, this is it. I was like, Derrek is on point. I think that's just right away, not like getting to the next step. And I think that's just a great place to start. Like one of the things that makes you stand out on the team is that you're always about that next action. Like you're super focused on, okay, I've got this thing. I'm going to get it from here to there or to the next thing. Some people are stuck where they're like, where am I? And other people are like, I want to go to the magical place, which is so far away we can't get there. Am I picking up on something there? Are you, is that kind of your motto, your go-to approach? How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that's kind of me. In this situation, I want to have the race fresh in my mind. So I knew the sooner the better. If I waited 2 weeks, it would have been on to the next thing by then. But no, it's just a matter of just dealing with, you have your long-term goals or races and plan. But as long as you have those intermediate goals, that's going to get you there. It's like just focusing on that next thing that's leading you to the next big thing. And that's,
I like that.
Yeah, that's how I approach things.
I think, I feel like our culture in America is like full of gun analogies, but I'm going to use another one. I feel like when you're going to shoot something, you got to kind of line up the sights. And I think that's a challenging thing for people to say, oh, my long-term goal and my short-term goal are in alignment. Once they are, then do the short-term thing, really do it well, and that's going to set you up for the long-term thing. I think sometimes people really they almost treat those as two separate things. I've got this big race, and this is just a bunch of stuff that's happening before I get to the big race. The more you can sort of structure that, the better you get long-term.
Right. Yeah, and it stops you from dwelling on that long-term big goal. It allows you to focus on the shorter-term ones, knowing that it's all, that next action.
Yeah, because it's all connected, right? Totally. You're like, I've got to do this, and then I can do that piece. You need to know. Like when we do Blue Apron here twice a week for my wife and I. Otherwise, I would just grill everything. And she looks at the recipe and just does the instructions. Like it says, open the package. I'm opening the package. You know? I look at the end and it says, this thing's going in an oven at this temperature and this thing. So I start doing a couple, I mix and match. We can never agree on the way to go. I think we could both agree, however, how to put a season together. You've been doing great, like coming together, championship races, high podium performances. But it wasn't easy this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm going to take us back to this earlier this season. You like the run setback, your hamstring. You've been fighting that for a little bit, which is tough as a runner. Tell us a little bit about what, don't go too crazy, but what was when did it first start to if you were to tell a story that would give people like maybe I've got to think something I should be paying attention to? What would that story be? Where would we be exactly?
If you don't mind, let me go back to the stress fracture in my right ankle. So last August is when it actually accumulated in so much pain where I couldn't walk. I've been having this mild pain in my ankle for probably a couple months. Okay. And it wasn't sharp. It's just a mild pain, something you think you would just work through and it would go away. And it never did. And I never addressed it, and it got worse. And then on this one run, it got real bad, and I had to stop, and I was limping home, and turned out to be a stress fracture. Okay. Long story short, from August through, I would say, the end of December, I didn't do much running. Okay. Other than I did do 70.3 worlds. That probably set me back a little bit. Even though, it's worlds. But I had a decent run and I was able to run. But anyway, January is when I started building back my run from the stress fracture. Ankle started feeling normal again. And that's the same time I started January out season. So I was doing the workouts on the out season, except for the runs. The runs, I just started back really light, doing like 3 runs a week. I was like 20 miles a week. And so, I built my run back starting in January, which everything was coming along well. Right. April 2nd, I did the Cherry Blossom 10 miler. Oh, yeah. I had a really good race. What was my time? I think I averaged like 7:30 miles. Okay. I think my time was an hour 8, hour 9, somewhere in there. Yeah. I had a really good race. Things were going good. Yeah. And then about a week, so that was January, or that was April 2nd. April 2nd. Yep. About 2 weeks later, I did a bike workout and a brick run. When I got off the bike, I started running, and within the first mile, I just felt a tightness on my hamstrings, my left hamstring, and it just progressively got worse. In about a mile and a half, about 2 miles, I stopped and walked the rest of the way. But I say that it just didn't spring on me at that run. One thing I did notice was probably, 2 weeks leading up to that point, I was feeling, after a run, I would feel a tightness in my hamstring. Okay. And it was just something, let me stretch it out. But it was nothing that happened during the run. It was nothing during the run, felt fine. It was just always after that run. Okay. And and then about mid-April is when it just took a turn for the worse. This got really tight. I couldn't run on it. And so I pretty much stopped running from mid-April, didn't run the rest of April. I think mid-May is when I started back to running again. So 3 to 4 weeks. But during that period, though, I could swim, I could bike, no issues, no pain to the hamstring. So I really focused on the bike, and I felt I kept my endurance, my cardio up just from the biking and swimming. I was swimming 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week. And started back running after about 4 weeks. And it was one of those things, it was touch and go. It wasn't 100% at all. And I just started with 3 miles and then 4 miles, and making sure I had a day or 2 off in between each run. And I actually came real close to canceling the race, did not start. And
No,
I did.
I thought you meant cancel. Hey, everybody, nobody show up. It's not happening. I can't race. Nobody races.
Yeah.
I can see the mind. You're like, cancel or just DNS?
Cancel or DNS. Yes, DNS. And I did a couple test runs. The first one was a 6 mile. First one was an 8 mile run, and that went well until the last mile. I felt the tightness come back, and all this is at a reduced pace. It's at a slower pace. I felt if I ran faster, the tightness would come back. Okay. And then the following week, and so now the following week is 2 weeks out from the race. I did a 10-mile run, and that went well. No hamstring issues. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do the race. Okay. And my plan going in was the run was just a big question mark on how I would do. I had no idea. I was just going to take what the day gave me. Okay. And yeah, it turns out when I got to the run, I think there's other things that were hurting that took my mind off of my hamstring. So I wasn't thinking about it, which is a good sign if you're not thinking about an injury. Yeah. And it did good up until about mile 12 and a half or so. Started getting tight. And I just took a couple extra walk breaks. Okay. I was walking through most of the aid stations. And so, at mile 12, mile 12 and 13, I took a couple extra 30 to 60 second walk breaks. And it all turned out. It all turned out well. Yeah.
I got just a couple questions for the peanut gallery. So like with the hamstring stuff, did you increase cycling time or did you just stick with the plan? Did you fill some gaps with what the non-running time was, or did you just do the sort of like a bike and swim program as though the runs just weren't there?
Yeah, my intention was to increase the bike.
Okay.
But that never really happened. Just time constraints with work and everything. So I did the workouts, and I was swimming especially the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think I pushed it up to 4 times a week. Okay. As far as the swimming was going. All right. But the bikes, I felt real good on the bike workouts. I felt fitness was improving. So I never really was concerned with the run as far as I figured if my hamstring held out, I knew I'd be able to finish it. It was just at what pace would I be able to go? Got it. That was a question mark.
I wanted just to that point, like I think a lot of people presume that we take away the run, then there's this hole in your program. You got to fill it in. And to your point, I feel as though sticking with the program as written, doing the work that's there, better bike workouts, for example, but still allowing some time for recovery because we're still trying to get that hamstring to heal. There's a point in there by when you add more stuff in to make up for the stuff you don't have, you're just creating another issue in some way or delaying that recovery. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to that sort of DNS conversation real fast. If you could zoom in there. Was that just after one of those test runs where you were like, I'm not sure it's going to hold out? Or was it another moment where you just were frustrated? Or what was going through your mind?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I did not want to race where I couldn't put out my best effort. Yeah. Because to me, that's real frustrating. Going into a race knowing you're going to have to walk the run. I don't think I would have done that. That's because during the whole run, you're just mad. You're just frustrated.
Totally. Because everyone's like, you can do it. Pick it up. And you're like, I cannot run.
And so back when I had the stress fracture and 70.3 worlds, it was the same situation, but even worse because I hadn't run for even longer. Yeah. And I went and did it and finished it, but it wasn't a good feeling. You didn't feel good about your performance because you couldn't go at what you could do, your full potential.
Yeah.
After that race, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do a race if I can't perform at what I know I can do. And that's what had me thinking about DNSing is just don't do this race. There's other races you can push to and be in a better spot with the run. And like I contacted Ironman. Of course, they said, "Oh, you missed it by 3 days. We could have deferred you," whatever it was. Yeah, but if they would have allowed me to transfer or defer, I probably would have done that.
Okay.
But yeah, then after those 2 runs, I was feeling pretty confident. I could do a decent run. And a friend of mine reminded me that it's not. I didn't say he reminded
Okay, it's all right.
He said that you got to remember you're running slow as most people's running fast.
Yeah.
So he felt that I was going to be okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So funny. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was going to tell you, I might be jumping ahead here to the end of the race. Funny story.
Yeah.
So I finished the race, right? My wife is there, and you go through all the stuff you do at the end of the race, get the food, hang out a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have my cell phone.
Okay.
And it was back in transition area with my stuff.
Sure.
And my wife didn't tell me like what place I got. I guess she was. And so I didn't know I had come in 5th place.
Okay.
Ate the food, hung out a little bit. We got in the car and was heading to the hotel. And someone texted me and said, "Hey, congratulations on a great race and the 5th place age group." I was like, "What?" 5th place? And at that point, I got my phone out of my bag and looked up the results. And I was like, oh my gosh. And at this point, it was like 3:30.
Okay. And
the award ceremony started at 4. I was like, okay, we got to go back.
Turn this thing around.
Yeah. I had no idea how I was doing in the race and how I placed at the end. It was just, my expectation was just to finish the run. So I assumed that I would be, I would have been happy with the top 10. Yeah. So we get back there.
Okay.
We get back and there's a thunderstorm approaching.
Uh-oh.
So in the forecast all along, there was forecast for thunderstorms to roll in like around 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And so it's 4 o'clock and you can see the storm coming in. Yeah. So on the Ironman app, they send a message out. Award ceremony is canceled due to the impending storm. Huh. We'll mail you the awards, and there's going to be a virtual roll down. Huh. I'm like, oh. And so, yeah, we get back there, get that message, turn back around, head back to the hotel.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The only thing that's funny to me about that was many things funny I want to talk about. But one thing is, as you go back and obviously you look at the race day channel inside the team, and the team is like, Derrek's moving. See you later, 9th place. Like 8's for breakfast. Like, go get 8 and go get 7. So we're imagining the story of you as like a giant Pac-Man, like just eating and destroying the field. Meanwhile, Derrek's just running. I'm just running. I had no idea. Oh, yeah. Just like two completely different perspectives on the same performance, which is so funny. Yeah. Okay, now I have to know, your wife is just an amazing human being, and she puts up with you, so she has to already be an angel. But did you say, hey, baby, like when I'm on the podium, maybe just like top 5, you could be like, show me a number? Or...
I know. And she kind of, I guess I leveled expectations with her too, due to my run. A couple years ago when I did 70.3 North Carolina, as soon as I crossed the finish line and saw her, she said, you got 4th place. So I was thinking if I had placed, she would have told me.
Okay. Oh man.
Yeah. So that was funny. I was like, what? Podium? Yeah.
That's so funny. That's so crazy. So, well, at least you weren't. Some people get a little grumpy about their race. They're like, it wasn't a great race. And they're reading all the wrong signals and they're grumpy on the way home. And then they get a phone call or they find out that they did better. They thought, everything's great. It was just terrible. And now everything's fine, as it were. But it sounds to me like you knew you had a good race. You had a good race going. You just weren't sure how big overall it would be. It's got to be a big confidence booster for you. You're saying, oh, hey, 80% Derrek, not so bad.
Yeah, it is. And I felt real good about the bike too. Felt good about my swim fitness going into the race. Racing at altitude, I found out, really affects your swim.
Yeah.
It really affects your swim.
Yeah. The RPE is just through the roof. Everything feels like you're sprinting. You're like, could I breathe more often, please? Yeah.
I really just had to crank it down.
Okay.
Yeah. I followed my plan. I started nice and slow and built into it. After the first couple hundred yards, I picked it up. And then before I knew it, I was like, I couldn't catch my breath. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I just had to crank it down. And I did that. And I said, okay, let me get back up to race pace and try that again. And the breathing just went crazy. So I backed it back down, and one other time I tried to pick it up, and then I was like, okay, it's got to be the altitude. I've been looking at my data, my heart rate. My heart rate was like 142, which is what I typically see on the bike when I'm doing zone 3 work. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was.
That's not I remember I went out to Boulder many years ago and was training with a friend, and like day one he was like, we'll swim, and both of us had no idea. We were just like total idiots. I could barely make it. He had told people, this is Patrick, he's going to come swim in your lane, he swims your speed. He'd done all this great organizing, which is fantastic, and then I got there, I could barely make it to the other end of the pool. I was like gasping for air. I'm like, what's happening? And then the person next to me was like, it's altitude, you idiot. And I was like, oh my God, like how do we forget about that part? I was so excited about swimming, but I felt like my eyes were just like bulging out of my head. It was just the most surreal experience. So a couple of key things just to draw this analogy. One, I see like the patience you had with yourself on the run and the run training during this time as you're letting your body heal. It's just so important. Tim Cronk has been modeling that behavior for us for a long time, of being like, if it doesn't feel good, just stop. It's not like you're never going to run again, but anytime you try to run or try to do something else like running, but not running because you're not supposed to run, but you can do all these other things, it really just slows down your ability to recover. So one of the things I want to highlight for the team is just that, like you're disciplined to be like, you know what, I'm just not going to do the run. I'm just going to let it heal. Like I'll do self-care, I'll stretch, I'll do the stuff, but I'm just not going to test it. I'm just going to let it recover. That's just so important. And then on the flip side, like judiciously coming back. Like I'll do a couple 3-milers. I'll make sure I've got rest between them as another sort of highlight from the conversation, which again is really hard for people to do. They see a race, they see a deadline, and you can cram for an algebra test, but you can't cram for a run. It doesn't work that way. So I like the idea of you expanding your fitness, finding more time for recovery, and then still being able to race well. To your point, there's something about racing, especially someone who's raced quite a bit. So I guess the one big differentiator for you is you do have quite a fair amount of race experience. So you're pretty comfortable in a race environment. But there's something about racing where a lot of times the issues that you're most worried about aren't even there. So people will all like, God, my calf bothers me, I have 4 weeks on my calf. On my race, they tell me the whole race. I'm like, what about your calf? They were like, oh, that's right. Totally forgot about my calf. It's been on there, but on race day, they had all sorts of other things that they had to deal with. And that's another common sort of experience. So I'm grateful that you were able to race, that you were able to put it together, but that you also had that similar experience where like the race priorities have you processing information and dealing with stuff on such a rapid basis that you can't really obsess about this other issue you have.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
The other thing I did during the race, I still follow the typical Ian race execution strategy for the run. Okay. Those first 3 miles, I took it easy. I think I might even stretch it to the first 4 miles.
Okay.
And then I just slowly built into it.
Okay.
that slowly built into it. So that was, I still stuck with that race plan. And yeah, and I was able to hold that pretty much up until the last couple miles.
Okay. That's huge. I think the people just don't really, I see it all the time now that even some of the new folks on the team or some of our veteran members, like just having the discipline to take it easy at the beginning of the run so you can put stuff together. It's like trying to let people know it's not just about people. I think people think it's just a time thing. If I just slow down enough now, I'll get all this extra time later. To me, it's like your race there's assembly that's required and you have to do it over the remaining miles. And if you use up that energy early, your capacity to solve problems or make better decisions gets significantly reduced. It just takes options off the table. Future you has far less options because of what you're doing now. Case in point, for you to get to 12 and a half miles before you had to really deal with that hamstring. You imagine the alternative of coming out of the gate hot, 3 miles there. Take those 3 miles away from the end. You're not even at mile 10 yet. You're like, I got more than a 5K of this run walk business. It'd be a nightmare. Oof. That'd be crazy.
Yes.
Wow. Kudos. I love hearing the race story and everything like that. So let's just zoom out for a second. Now, this is just a stepping stone for you, but what's on the remainder of the calendar for you for the season?
Oh, so the remainder of the calendar, next race is Ironman Canada.
Okay.
In Ticton. That's the 3rd week of August. And then about a month later, I'm doing Berlin Marathon.
Nice. How many of the world's marathons do you have left?
I have 3.
3 more to go? Okay.
3 more to go. Yes.
All right.
Berlin's been deferred the last 2 years.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll be able to do it. And the hamstring isn't 100% yet. Still not 100%, but like we were talking, it's just running smart, training smart on it.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the next 2 big races.
Okay. Wow. It rolls onward. Are you going to do, knowing that your hamstring's not 100%, and the goal is to be able to do these 2 races and get into a space? I think on one level, you can look at your race in Boulder and be like, yeah, if I have a decent day at Penticton, I'm still going to be in a good place. I don't need to start doing all sorts of crazy stuff now because I had this bad race. Sometimes that outlying data can force people to make into poor decision making on the early side. But it is a lot of work to get ready for that piece. What's your strategy? You still going to space out the runs and be smart? Are you trying to figure out how to get in a long run, or are you splitting the long run? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to split the long runs.
Okay.
And I'm not going to do any intensity on the runs. Everything will be just marathon pace or TRP pace. Okay. No strides, no Z3 or Z4 work.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And other than that, I'll follow the training plan and just where it has the speed workouts, I'll just do the distance.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good one for you. Okay. All right. So have you taken a look at the run course? Like, I know it's a different run course this year.
No, but I think it involves two climbs each loop. I looked at it a while back, but I haven't really studied it.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely broken down as like out of the gate, you got like a decent climb, and it really kind of comes at you early. So I think it dovetails well to you. Like the first, it's basically like a flavor of 5K up and down. Here, hold on a second. I can bear with me here. I can try and share my screen if I can do something. Here we go. Share screen. Here we go.
Oh.
All right, there. Can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
All right, there you go. So here you go. This doodad right here in the hot pink. So it's 5K of work right out of the gate.
Oh, wow.
And then you get this descent on the other side. And then you just got this kind of repeating out and back section twice, essentially.
Okay.
So I think that really dovetails well with your strategy of being like, hey, I'm going to be really smart at the start. I think you can head into that race knowing that, oh, a lot of people are going to push that, healthy or otherwise, and try and put time in the field or do whatever. And I think you actually, if you had to face this again later, that'd be another thing. Kind of like, if this is like Ironman Lake Placid, this kind of came at you again on the second loop, that'd be pretty brutal. But in this case, you know that you don't have to see this again. So I think taking those first 5Ks, that just really, I think that does well for you and your typical piece in terms of like how you can pace it and get after it.
Yeah.
I think you'll be all right. The key is, I think for you, is just making sure that that whole sort of like, I don't feel my hamstring. Like, I think we still need to have that hamstring on the front of your mind in that first 5K, because that first 5K never feels like, it goes by so fast. You're so excited. You're like, I'm not biking. I'm not biking. I'll do anything. And then all of a sudden it comes at you. The other part about Penticton as well that's an outlier is the temperature. I can often get warm up there. They moved it a little earlier in July, but it's still on the bubbles. But it's a beautiful course. Your top goal is obviously, like, if you do, presuming you stay healthy and you have a 112-mile warm-up before you get to the run, you'd be all set for Berlin. I think the hard part is taking care of yourself now. Are you doing anything extracurricular-wise, like dry needling or getting ART? What are you doing?
All of it.
All of it. All the homework. All right.
I did dry needling.
Okay.
ART, PT.
All right.
Yeah, it was. It was to the point where I like, okay, let me just relax the muscle.
Yeah.
No more poking it and prodding.
Don't poke the bear. I hear you. Yeah. I hear you. It's hard too. I think some people look at that and say, I did one session of dry needling, cost me X. I got to do 8 more sessions. It's going to cost me 8X. It's blah, blah, blah. But for me, I think a lot of that stuff is also like a discovery process too. Like, each practitioner I meet with, like, I learn something else, like a different perspective on what's happening, and they give me a different tactic. And so it's easy to get frustrated with that, but I feel like if it advances my knowledge and gives me opportunities to figure out, like, how do I manage this? How do I take care of it? Where am I? To me, that's super helpful. Yeah. I do encourage people to do that. I'm amazed at the number of people when they tell me my ankle's hurting. I'm like, have you seen your doctor? They were like, no. I'm like, but it's going to take you like 4 weeks to get an MRI. Like, when did the pain start? They're like 4 weeks ago. I'm like, you could have had an MRI today. Come on. Like, you've just got to, I think those early warning signs, they may just be like, for you, it was, my hamstring is texting me, like, maybe stretch later. And you're like, it wasn't a 911 call. I don't need to do anything. But I do believe we have to get better. The higher aspirations, like, we have to get better at reading those tea leaves to stay healthy, stay on top of it. I'm super pumped for you. 5th on the podium. The team is obviously super excited. They're going to be like more than a few chuckles, I think, when they hear this interview and find out you were like just running along. Didn't even know you were there.
I did. It was great reading all of that after the race. After I got back to the hotel, it was great reading all that.
That's so funny.
All the team
I think it's a
mojo.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, anytime you get on the podium is obviously just a mega achievement for sure. Whether you expect it or not, like, being able to put together a race that obviously just measured by the competition and puts you in that position is just pretty nice to see. It's also, I think for me, every year, those early races are like, can I still do this? And so for you, you're like, I can still build a race that's a good race. Okay. I'll go back to just focusing on the training. I don't have to worry about, can I still do the Rubik's Cube super fast? So I'm excited to see the progress. All right, keep us posted. I'm going to head over to office hours, but don't feel obligated at all. Like, I just talked your ear off, so you do you.
Yeah, I'll jump over.
Okay. All right. That'd be great. Yeah. I'll see you over there then. All right.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Derrek. So good.
All right.
I'll see you.
I'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.